I think a lot. I think a lot about all the drama that we see coming from the news of wars, of prisoners, of strife, of artificial intelligence, of the demise of our species, the end of jobs, the destruction of the planet. You know, the same stuff that I'm sure you see in your newsfeed every single day. And one of the main reasons why people end up having to go through social media detox. Yet despite all of the crap that is being forced down our throats about how we are the plague of the planet, which I don't believe by any stretch of the imagination, and despite the fact that there's so much uncertainty about where artificial intelligence is going to go moving forward, that we've been living in this funk for a little while, kind of sitting by the sidelines, wondering when the executioners are going to come and kill us all, or at least our careers, our identities. Despite all that, I'm sitting here today, a fellow artist, feeling more inspired, productive, and optimistic about our future. Call it ignorant bliss, but my day-to-day experiences, what I actually live, not what I hear on the news, but what I live through and what I create, hasn't even been remotely impacted by any of this news. That I've completely turned a blind eye to everything going on, and so have my students, and so do so many of you as well, that I think the more drama, the more stressful content, the more negativity gets shoved down our throat, the more rebellious we get as artists, as people. But I think us artists in particular don't bend the knee to drama, because we very often live in our own worlds. We create our own realities. And I actually think what's happening right now is not a bad thing. I think it's necessary. I think it's about bloody time. And I think it's going to finally spark the change that the creative world, artists, photographers, dancers, writers, singers, voice actors, comedians, etc. I think it's the final straw that broke the camel's back that is finally going to reset our purpose as artists. However, note something very, very important. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, so that's Saturday, at 10 a.m. Eastern is my absolute last call deadline if you want to sign up for my visual storytelling and composition masterclass. It's a 5-hour workshop. It's going to be a packed house. It's already a packed house, but there's still spaces for everybody. So if you're interested, my contact information will be in the description below. So why am I so optimistic about the future for artists? And why have I noticed lately that I have more art students signing up right now than ever? The art students in my mentorship are more productive and more inspired and more impassioned with their work than I've seen in the last 10, 12 years since I started my mentorship. Pre-AI drama. Well, I'm only starting to realize right now, to be honest with you, like in the last few months at best, that I happen to be exactly the right age, turning 50 in November this year, November 7th, shout out to my Scorpios, that witnessed firsthand, that I lived through an art career that spanned everywhere from completely traditional into the early introductions of digital to where we are today, where everything's become almost strictly digital. At least professionally, it's become strictly digital in a production setting, unless you're a fine artist and an oil painter and stuff. But it only dawned on me recently, when I first started my career, it was almost purely traditional. Digital art was not even a thing at all. There was no Wacom tablets. There was no mainstream Photoshop. I came from a fine artist family, an oil painting family. I studied fine arts, and then I got into animation in university, where we were doing everything with pencil and paper and animation tables and learning how to flip and shooting everything with a traditional camera top down and Oxbury cameras and all that kind of shit, stop motion animation, all that kind of jazz. And then very, very shortly after, scanners were introduced, where we could scan our hand-drawn drawings, something I do not miss by any stretch of the imagination, and we would start coloring, very frustratingly, in Photoshop. And then drawing tablets were introduced, the first little crappy little, tiny little Wacom tablets that had the blue Wacom tablet with the gray pen. And then that evolved into slightly medium-sized, and then they came with the large, and then it settled down into the medium-sized, and before you knew it, we were working directly into Photoshop, and everybody had acclimatized themselves to that. And, well, the rest is history, right? We just continued to work digitally this whole time. And I remember, I've always had this feeling, and anybody who's come from a traditional background can vouch for the fact that there was a sacrifice in moving to digital. There were benefits. It was faster, more efficient, easier to ship, easier to maintain quality control. You didn't have to worry about if you were working in ink that it would create reflections in your comic book pages and stuff like that. So you could get a very faithful image, but at the same time, the material value that was added to a piece when it was a one-of-a-kind canvas, a one-of-a-kind drawing. Like, for instance, I remember being in New York when I was in my 20s and stuff, at the early phase of my career, and I was walking down Broadway Street because I took a trip to New York, and walking down, and there was this cartoon shop right there on Fifth Avenue. This cute little shop where they sold original animation cells from, stamped, certified films like Disney and stuff like that, and Looney Tunes and all that kind of stuff. And I remember one animation cell from, I think it was Sleeping Beauty. It was the hand-painted background with two animation cells laid on top of it, where it was the entire table with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I think that retailed, there was a price tag on that frame of close to $1 million. It was insanely valuable. But now with digital, that value is entirely gone because that exclusivity is gone. Or for instance, I've spoken about the restaurant Beauties in Montreal. If you ever get a chance, it's a landmark. It's like a restaurant frozen in the 50s. It's a really, really cool place when you walk in. Same menu they've had for many decades. And you would walk in, and there was a legitimate framed pencil sketch by Chuck Jones sitting right by the front door. They ended up taking it down, I think, because I can't remember the reason it was. I thought it was stolen, but I think they moved it for whatever reason to avoid theft or something. But again, an original, like Chuck Jones's hands touched that drawing, that paper. Holy shit. How would you feel about that if it was a print? It was a digital print. It wouldn't have nearly the same value because you can go on Google right now and you can go and find it yourself. Now, in a sense, what I'm saying here, not intentionally, just through the very process of describing what I experienced at that early phase in my career where everything I did was on paper, that the work that we see online are just digital impressions of art. Now, every painting you've ever seen me do was done by hand. You've seen everything that I've done has been done by hand. 99.9% of my paintings are public. You can see everything that I do. But I'm not doing it on a canvas with oil paint. You can't smell my art. You can't feel the three-dimensional physicality of my artwork. It's just an image that you can see online, and you can duplicate that as many times as you want. You want desktop wallpaper, just copy paste it and use it as wallpaper. It's there. You don't need exclusive access to it. You don't need to go to a fancy art gallery or go for a wine and cheese vernissage event to be able to see my gallery. No. 'Tis what it is. It's digital. And what's happening now, what I'm seeing happen with artificial intelligence and AI-generated imagery, a lot of people have been over the last few years, I guess, since this started to become a thing, and since it started to become a real potential threat to our careers, is the theft of the hard work, that went into producing those digital images. Because it could just scrape that information, churn it through a grinder, and just pump out something that was kind of an amalgamation of the best of everything. Now, everybody and anybody can say that I can look at a piece of AI art, no matter how interesting it is, no matter how visually strong it might be. I don't know anybody who's ever felt anything looking at a piece of AI art, looking at an AI image, an AI photograph of a fake human, an AI video. Because, as Simon Sinek said, he said, AI doesn't have a perspective. It's just something that's capable of churning out information. It's data collection. So what Neil deGrasse Tyson had said recently, because he's personally excited about AI for his own personal reasons, but is also a very strong advocate and supporter of the arts of all kinds, that it's just forcing us to become more original, to look more inside. And I went, yeah, he's right. Because what AI has done, what it's doing, what we're witnessing it do, is it's taking away beauty. It's owning it in seconds. The 20 years it took you to draw something that was this visually strong, it can do that. It can do that in a heartbeat. It can do 10 in a second. Big deal. So if you're only gauging the quality of your work, the value of your work based off of its visual appeal, well, goodbye. You're done. It's okay. We don't need you anymore. Take care. Here's your pink slip. You're good to go. Good luck. Get a degree in law. I don't care. It's none of my business anymore. You're gone. But it's interesting how 99.9% of us, whether we've been laid off because of AI, because AI has taken our job, whether we've been discouraged or stressed out or worried because we think that AI is going to steal our jobs, it's going to destroy our potential, our future, and eventually we're just going to have to come to terms with the fact that we're obsolete. 99% of us aren't going anywhere. In fact, we're seeing the opposite happen. I'm seeing more inspiration. I'm seeing more style. I'm seeing more dedication. I'm seeing more commitment. I'm seeing more affection, more importance in what we're doing. Why? Is it because it's just collective stupidity, collective denial of our imminent demise? No, because this isn't a social media thing. This is a personal thing. Social media can numb you and make everybody want to buy the same, eyelashes, dye their hair the same color. Like all the boys in my kids' high school right now, that all those guys that have those same curly broccoli haircuts that look really dumb, but whatever. To each your own. I won't judge your journey, baby. But social media might influence a lot of people to follow certain trends and shit, but when it comes to artistry, we're all becoming more and more unique. We're valuing our voices more. We're having more fun getting ourselves lost in our practice. Why? Wouldn't you think the opposite would happen? Shouldn't we all be crying and feeling depressed and feeling hopeless? No, I'm sitting down and it's crazy how as the years have passed, there was a little bit of a dip at a certain point when AI first came out. That I saw a dip in people's motivation because it was kind of the initial shock of, oh fuck, we just saw Midjourney just do something really, really impressive. So I saw a dip in the morale. I saw a dip in people who are interested in, for instance, signing up for my mentorship. But then it slowly started to tick back up again. And it keeps going up, and it keeps going up, and it keeps going up. And I'm honestly now seeing more people show an interest in learning, more people with an interest in taking workshops and growing and experiencing and signing up for different schools and stuff like that than I have since COVID, when all we had were mentorships and online schools to keep us busy. I had a huge surge of people who signed up for the mentorship during COVID because people were depressed and needed something to do with themselves. So they decided to sign up. But then it kind of tapered down when AI came down, and now it's coming right back up again. Well, I have a theory, but I don't really feel it's a theory. I really feel strongly about this. It's that what AI has done and what it's doing is it's stripping away the novelty of aesthetics. It's stripping away the novelty of the bling of doing things perfectly. It's demystifying perfection, which from my professional perspective, from being a professional artist who's been doing this his whole life, I know and I teach the very fact that perfection is the opposite of strong, meaningful, impactful artistic expression. It is the antidote to personality. It is the antidote to uniqueness. It is the antidote to being memorable. To me, when it comes to set design and color theory and shape design and textures and visual storytelling, what you learn and what you start to embrace as an artist as you move forward, once you start to develop a fluidity with your traditional skills, where you can really start to express yourself in a very genuine, very organic way, like I'm doing right now with this painting, is you lean heavily into imperfection. You lean heavily into unpredictability. You lean heavily into the natural flaws that nature create. What is one of Lawrence Fishburne's, or Morpheus from the Matrix, if you want to remember who Lawrence Fishburne is. What is one of Lawrence Fishburne's most distinguishable characteristics? I would say there's two things. He's got probably some chickenpox scars on his face. He's got just a couple little scars that catch the light, and he's got a gap in his teeth. He's got imperfect teeth, doesn't he? Right? That's what marked him visually. And then you just combine that with a warm personality, a kind voice, and amazing acting skills, and you've got somebody who's not only talented and skilled, but he's also very relatable. He's also very human. He's also very endearing. It's his flaws that make him memorable. And the same thing applies to my art. If every single mushroom that I was drawing right now was perfectly rendered and perfectly symmetrical, then there would be nothing for your mind to grip. There would be nothing for your mind to appreciate. You might look at one of the mushrooms, you might look at one of the shapes in my drawing, and you might go, oh God, just render that goddamn thing. It's driving me crazy, Adam. Fucking fix that thing. It's bugging the crap out of me. I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to let it sit there, and I want it to drive you absolutely mad. I'm not going to polish up that imperfection for the sake of satisfying your desire for flawlessness. Because I know that it's that flaw that you're going to remember. The human brain is incredibly well tuned to anomalies. And not only that, but what makes it unique to me, what makes that flaw unique to me, is the fact that I keep making that stupid mistake over and over and over again, don't I? And you know better, because you took a course with Tim McBurney, and you're like, Tim would call you out on that shit. Adam, fix that. And I'm going to go, no, I'm not. I'm going to let it sit there, and I'm going to watch you slowly have a nervous breakdown. And every time you see me do that, you're going to get triggered, and you're going to leave a hate comment, and I'm going to be good. But you're going to remember it, aren't you? And you probably remember every good and bad thing I've ever said. You'll remember that. I don't try to connect. I don't try to impress. I don't try to forge a relationship with you by sharing with you all of the things that make me perfect. I do so by sharing everything, good, bad, whatever. And just embracing the fact that there is no real good and bad. There's just evolution. There's just adaptation. There's just, I'm just maturing. I'm growing. I'm getting older. I'm learning shit. And there's certain lessons in my life that have taken me a lifetime, and I'm still working on them. And there's other things that I've felt good and I've excelled at. Just whatever. I don't care anymore. But when you look at a piece of AI art, that digital perfection is stealing away the value that we feel our, quote, digital art has brought us. But I don't think it's doing that at all. I think what it's doing is it is taking a wonderful thing and it's creating out of that something meaningless. It's taking a famous dish, a hamburger, something that at one particular point was a delicacy, was a unique creation by a chef that made everybody line up outside the restaurant, and then made something mainstream out of it, made it fast food, churned it out in a machine, and as soon as that happened, its value disappeared. Did McDonald's kill the hamburger? No. It just created a cheaper version of it. It doesn't mean you can't walk into an expensive restaurant and get a delicious handmade burger made by a professional chef with all these wonderful seasonings and vegetables and all that kind of stuff and have an absolutely exceptional experience. There's professionals in every walk of life. You have a choice. If you want quality, if you want expression, if you want to really experience the greatest quality that an artist has to share, then you don't go for the fast food version of it. You go to the source, you go to the master chef, you go to the artist. And this is what artists are realizing, because the novelty of being perfect is now being quickly overrun. That's very quickly not even becoming an option for us. But I have spent the last 20 years, 25 years of my art career, ever since the early 2000s, I've spent all of those years trying to make my digital art be more visually sharp and appealing than my counterparts, until a certain point where I said, I just can't fucking do this anymore. And I just decided to be myself. And thankfully, I discovered my voice as an artist before AI became a thing. Because I already realized that the value of my art had nothing to do with how pretty it was. It had to do with how genuine it was, how inspired I was to create it, and how sustainable it was, how I could live and nestle myself in the comfort of this dark fantasy world endlessly, and I could really identify and express myself fully through it. And whether I'm the greatest artist in the world or I suck ass really doesn't matter to me anymore, because that's not the value that I feel it should bring. Not to me. That's not what I value. Sure, I want to be good at what I do, and I want people to appreciate what I do. But being the best, being the sharpest, doing that splash art stuff, hey, if you're a splash artist, awesome. You've got amazing skill. I have no desire to do it. It means nothing to me. Nothing. And artists now are starting to become themselves. When I sit down with artists and they feel discouraged, it takes 5 seconds for me to pull them out of that funk and bring them right back into a place that they feel they have control over. I can't describe the joy as a teacher that I feel when somebody starts my class or has a consultation with me and at the beginning feels really down in the dumps, lost, and after an hour or two of us talking, I see the fire light in their eyes. I see the smiles on their face. I see this adrenaline of inspiration. Not because I gave them the magic ingredient. Not because I said, this is what you're going to do to make yourself better. This is what you need to get over your obstacle. That's just the technical shit. That's a default. That happens in every class. No, it's reuniting that artist with why they were an artist in the first place. And 100% of the time, it has nothing to do with doing pretty stuff. It has everything to do with being able to express themselves in a way that feels genuine. And by doing that, by offering that to the artist, by representing them to who they truly are, all of a sudden they get that feeling of control back, of ownership back. That there is absolutely nothing about who they are that isn't perfect for what it is they want to express. Because they spent so many years getting lost in the oubliette of what they could be, that they forgot what they should be. And as soon as you realize what you should be, you realize why you're there as an artist. You remember why when you were 10 years old and you drew every single day, and everybody loved your drawings and you used to get praise from your teachers and your friends, you never cared back then if you were a professional. You never cared back then if you were the best. All you cared was that you were creating and being seen. And honest to goodness, that's all you need today too. If you really want to get good, if you really want to find your voice, if you really want to improve and become recognizable and find your tribe online, dark fantasy, League of Legends splash art, manga, anime, whatever, you find your tribe, you don't need motivation. And things like AI is not a threat to you. And being the best, prettiest artist on the planet is no longer a priority. So no matter how pretty AI art is, it has no meaning. You got to remember something. You're a person. You're a human. And that in and of itself is your greatest quality. Your humanity. That's what people care about. People care about you. And realize you're an artist because when people appreciate your art, they're not just appreciating your drawing, they're appreciating you. Because who you are as an artist, the human being that we connect to that beautiful work of art, is just as important as the art itself. Think about any famous artist from the past or the present, any master, any celebrated artist, maybe with the exception of Banksy, because Banksy's a bit elusive, right? But if you think about any artist that is well known and celebrated, their face, their voice, their identity, what they say, how they say it, their philosophy, their books, their writings, their life histories, their career histories, their family histories, is just as important as the art that they created. Who was Modigliani? What was he like? Why did he always lock himself in studios and do these erotic paintings of women in this very, very strange way? Why did Picasso, what made Picasso the type of artist that he was? When he was a teenager, he did master level drawings, and then later on in life he got into this weird abstract kids art looking shit. Why did Degas and Renoir and Monet and Seurat, why did we have these phases of pointillism and impressionism? What was going on during that time? Why did people give William Bouguereau such a hard time because he painted realism? What was it about them that made people so bitter? What happened to John Singer Sargent when he painted Madame X? Who was Madame X? And why did that almost cost his career? Why do we give a shit? It's because it's the person. We love to know who created that wonderful art. Now fast forward to today, and I remember when they started releasing some Studio Ghibli AI art, right? People were Studio Ghibli-ing their portraits and doing fake screenshots of fake movies in AI. And people were really furious about that, myself included. However, does anybody care about those images? Do you care? When you see an AI-looking Ghibli type thing, do you remember it? Is it memorable? Are people still posting about it? No. Why? Because they inherently have no value. But if you think about a screenshot from Spirited Away, or Howl's Moving Castle, or Princess Mononoke, you remember those. You remember every frame of those films. Every one of them have value because you know that there was an artist, there was a director who smoked too much and never slept, who created that. There was a person. That Hayao Miyazaki is as important as his films. We celebrate him as much as we celebrate his drawings. You can do as much AI is just doing fan art of it. It's just some fanboy trying to copy his style. We can all do that. Just because I can faithfully recreate a drawing in Miyazaki's style does not make me Miyazaki. It does not give my artwork value. It just makes me good at copying shit. And just because I'm an artist who's been very inspired artistically in his own career by Hidetaka Miyazaki from the Souls series, does not make me Hidetaka Miyazaki. I've been inspired by him. But why am I inspired by him? Well, for starters, he's got an exceptional artistic mind. Even if he doesn't draw, he's an incredible artistic director. But he's also a very funny, nerdy guy. He's a very affable man. He's very quick to laugh. He's got a very gentle personality. He's a bit elusive and mysterious. He's incredibly gifted. But he's gifted not from I was raised in a rich family and went through some fancy school and I've been given privilege. No, he was just a geek who played a lot of D&D and just leaned into that hard and heavy, didn't he? And I really love that about him. To me, his art isn't just beautiful, dark, moody, melancholy, calming, meditative work, but it's a reflection of a kind soul. And yes, sadly, if we find out one day that he was a piece of shit, if we find out one day that he was a jerk, that very sadly would impact what he's created. It would have a very negative impact on the Souls series, because I associate Souls games to him, to his team, to his artists, to his mind, to his kindness. That matters to me. The same way Henry Cavill playing Geralt of Rivia. Henry matters as much as the show does. Henry's game geekiness, Henry's faithfulness to the books. Yeah, sure, he's a hunk. Yeah, sure, he's good looking. He's a fantastic Superman and he's a great actor. Oh, that's great. That's fine and dandy. But you have my word. I would not have enjoyed the Witcher series, at least the earlier episodes of the Witcher series, 1/15 as much if I didn't also respect the actor who was playing him and respect the dedication and the character of the actor who played Geralt. He really, really owned that role and respected that role as much as I do as a fan of the game series. I know that there are many of us today, right now, who are probably overwhelmed by all of this negativity, all of this conflict and turmoil and uncertainty online, because that's what social media does. Negativity sells. But I want you to realize in the same breath that you, and I'm speaking to you specifically, are very unique. And I'm not just saying you're unique as a human, I'm saying you're unique as a human artist, because as an artist, it's been written in your DNA for thousands of years that you create your own fate. You didn't play it safe. You didn't follow the pack. You weren't one of the sheep following the flock. You're the one who broke free from the flock, who painted yourself a different color, who chose a different path. A path of uncertainty, a path of your own making, where you somehow had to forge your own universe and connect that universe to your fellow human being in a way that was emotionally impactful, in a way that holds a mirror up to the world around you so that people can reflect on themselves as people. It's your unique responsibility to remind people that the world doesn't suck. It's your responsibility as an artist to remind people of why this world is beautiful. Because you're the one observing, you're the one remembering, you're the one capturing. And that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You might find little beautiful creatures, beautiful and endearing, like Bobby Chew. You might find old fungal rot on the side of an old castle, dilapidated with vines and cracked concrete and inverted swords, ghost swords stabbed into the candle-ridden landscape. Like me. The world's your oyster. The lens that you look at the world is entirely your own, and you amplify that lens and share it with people so that they can look at it and you can pull them out of their funk, out of their misery. You can pull them out of the pack and say, hey, look at this, you son of a bitch. Look how beautiful this is. I made this for you. You have that unique responsibility. And now that AI has stripped us of the novelty of aesthetics, now we can finally be ourselves. And that's why I feel very optimistic, because the threat is so overwhelmingly big that we don't have any choice but to grow and evolve and get back to our roots. And that makes me feel really, really good. All right. With that said, I love you all with all my heart. And happy painting. Take care.